The Magic Mike Show, where you hear the experts speak. The Magic Mike Show. Tune into the show every week. The Magic Mike Show. You can trust the show is the bomb because it's being brought to you by RacingDudes.com.
What's up, everybody? I'm Magic.
And I'm Mike.
And this is the Magic Mike Show, episode 519, Mr. Somich.
Special guest. Huzzah!
Yeah, I didn't even tweet about it. It's not on socials. Yeah, we have a special guest who'll be joining us in a few minutes for this special edition of the Magic Mike Show. Mike and I will be talking about the Kentucky Derby prep races that were held this past weekend. That would be the Springboard Mile Stakes at Remington Park and the Los Alamitos Futurity at, of course, Los Al. So a couple of minor Kentucky Derby prep races. Other than that, not a lot happened this weekend in the world of horse racing, but there's a coaching carousel happening in the NHL that the St. Louis Blues seem to be right in the center of. Whatever team comes into town, they get caught up in the Stroll Storm, and their coach is gone soon.
Yeah, we're just going to see some teams forfeit to St. Louis here in the near future because the coach doesn't want to go there. Bad vibes in the St. Louis area right now in the hockey world. But do you remember the last time the St. Louis Blues fired their coach mid-season, Magic?
You guys won the Stanley Cup. It was a good year for you.
They did win the Stanley Cup that year, so nothing short of that is a success this season now.
Yeah, poor Drew Bannister, right? Drew Bannister, is that his name?
It is. It's a very melon blah name. You're like, okay.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
However, the Ottawa Senators, for their head coach, they promoted an assistant, and one of my favorite players in the NHL in the 90s, Daniel Alfredson, is behind the bench. A former Ottawa Senator legend is going to be there. So anyway, that's all the hockey talk, but that's how boring this weekend was for horse racing if you weren't paying attention to Remington and if you didn't care about the Los Alamitos Futurity. However, we are going to talk about those two races quite a bit, and I've got the video files up here because if you didn't watch it live, it's probably very hard to find it, but we'll let the people who don't want me to put those videos come and find me, and we'll deal with that later. We'll ask for forgiveness later, Mike. But like I said, we've got the big show, the Remington Springboard Mile, and the Los Alamitos Futurity to talk about. Let's get into it, buddy. Right it up. All right, Mike, we'll welcome in our special guest down there at the bottom. It's Shoddy Amber Reeves.
What's up, dudes and dudettes?
Shoddy's a longtime follower of the Racing Dudes, and actually, look at this. Shoddy's chatting while she's watching and while she's part of the show. This is a pro, folks. This is the pro move right here.
We got to pick up our game, Magic. We're slacking here.
You called me out for it one time. I was on my laptop just responding to someone because I didn't want it to seem like Aaron was doing it. And you're like, why are you to get out of there? But no, that's why we have Shoddy here. But Shoddy, actually, the real reason we have Shoddy here, she was there at the Springboard Mile Stakes. And in fact, if you're watching the feed right now, you can see in the background that photo of Otto the Conqueror was taken by her fantasy league teammate, Davey Cleveland. They were both down there. So they got to have a great time. I wanted to bring Shoddy on, one, because she's a great guest, but two, this was a hell of a race, Mike. I don't know if did you get a chance to watch it live? I know you were in Vegas.
I did not watch it live. I have watched the replay a couple times since. Thought it was a pretty interesting race. Really fantastic horse race. Like, so we don't usually get this good of a horse race in these larger stakes sometimes. And this was a really, really solid race. You had two horses just banged heads the entire time.
I watched it live on my phone, and I was in the middle of putting my son down for the night, like in bed, and I'm holding his hand in the crib, and the phone is sitting right on the ledge. I'm like this close to it watching, and I bet Glengarry, because when all the scratches happened, we'll talk about that in a second. When the scratches happened, I thought he's kind of lone speed now, and if he can go a mile with Saez aboard, I gotta play him because Out of the Conqueror is probably gonna be too short of a price. This was a hell of a finish. So I'll go ahead and hit play on this and we'll get started. Mike, did you have a top pick in this race at all?
I was on Out of the Conqueror, but I didn't bet the race because I saw the price. And so I was keeping an eye on the odds board. And when the price kind of just tanked on him, and you mentioned the scratches, we'll get to the Brad Cox of it all here in a second. But as soon as I saw the price tank on, I was like, I'm not going to take that short of a price on him. And I like the Glengarry look. Kind of wish I had just hammered this exacta because it was a pretty clear 1-2 exacta. Especially if you weren't interested in the other short price in here, Raging Torrent, and I wasn't a huge Raging Torrent fan. So I wish I had taken that approach, but ended up just staying away.
And on the backstretch here, I thought Glengarry would get away, and Tyler Gaffney did exactly what he was supposed to, is he kept the horse right on Glengarry. At this point, I'm like, out of the Conquerors 1-9 to win, Glengarry's probably not going to hit the board. Like, I'm just thinking they're going to duel themselves down, and Glengarry, being a sprinter, is not going to make it. Shoddy, you also were Glengarry's supporter. What were you thinking as they're down the backstretch right here?
I was at this point. So Davey was calling out the fractions, and I'm just sitting there like, oh god, because it's kind of hard to see when they're on the backstretch, like when you're live. And I was just at this point when they're about to go around that far turn, I'm like, all right, if Glengarry's got it, he's gonna hold on here, but if not, he's gonna drop right out. And he started fighting back. Like Otto passed him, and then he would pass him, and then they were just knocking heads, like you said. The entire stretch, like going hoarse from screaming out for Glengarry. It's funny because I had Otto singled in a pick 4, but I was cheering for Glengarry because I wanted him to get by. And I feel like right here, you can see his head kind of get back. I think he felt a little pinched on the rail there, but as soon as Otto got by him, that was done. And then here comes the 4, Magic Grant, who Pedlo actually picked for his pick. And he called it that those two would battle up front, and then that horse would come flying down. So
yeah, and he won the gallop out. Magic Grant did, and that's the most important
he
part
did.
of the entire horse race. Mike, I'm going to rewind it here a little bit, Mike, and go back to the top of the stretch, because these horses. I'll pause it real quick. These horses were not fast coming home. They were actually quite slow, and they almost had to be carried. However, from a match race perspective, Mike, this could not have been more exciting as a horse racing fan, right? This was just bang, bang, bang.
Well, I think that's an important takeaway here, right? Fantastic horse race, not necessarily fantastic horses running in it. I think, because you see the fractions slow down there. You go 23:46. That's pretty quick up front, but then they go 125 to the 7/8, and the mile, not exactly a phenomenal time here, 139. So almost 14-second furlongs there to close it out. That's why you see that 4 coming so fast. We'll see what happens with these two. Like we're talking Derby, perhaps. I don't think we're talking Derby horses necessarily. I think there's a differentiator there, and we'll get into who I think had the best and worst day when you compare these two races. Because I think horses that weren't running, when you get into the Derby preps, one of the most important things you can do is figure out commonalities between them, and we don't get that opportunity a lot because you have these separated circuits. So when you see a California horse go to Arkansas, when you see a Florida horse go to Louisiana, you have to take that into consideration and then look at the holistic picture and say, okay, what horses do I move up or do I move down because of the races I saw and the horses I saw run in those races? And it felt to me like there were a couple clear winners and losers. We'll talk a little bit more about that after the Los Al Derby, because we have one horse that came from the American Pharoah that I would say didn't exactly run phenomenally well in this race. And that kind of sets you up for figuring out, okay, what circuits do I want to focus on? How do I want to focus on my Derby winner eventually? And this is the first stage that we're going to see in that, because we now do have some results from California horses in other places.
So the horse you mentioned coming out of the American Pharoah, that's the 6 Raging Sea.
Raging Torrent.
His credit, Raging Torrent. Thank you. Raging Torrent. John Lees had made a dumb joke about the horse's name to me, and it's stuck in my head. That's why I said that. Raging Torrent, this 6 horse. In his defense, he did not get out of the gate very nicely.
No,
the
he got pinched really hard by Otto and Glengarry. We were like, "Oh God!" when he first came out of the gate, like bam,
they literally just pushed him right back. However, I think where Mike is going with this, if you're any kind of a racehorse and they do 28.5 from the 3/4 to finish at the mile, your ass had better at least be in the photo up there. I mean, Magic Grant managed to get up there for 3rd. Is that where you were kind of going with this, Mike?
Yeah, I realize not the ideal trip, but you don't need to run last, right? Like that's kind of where I'm coming from. And it's not like this. And when I look at these horses, I want to say, okay, how much did it really affect the trip for Raging Torrent? Okay, it definitely wasn't the best trip for him, but he didn't need the lead. He didn't want the lead. And you had a duel in front of him. And so you should see something from that horse coming from the back of the pack. And the fact that we just didn't see anything, and then you combine that with the wind me up effort, the picture isn't pretty for someone like Muth coming out of those two specific races, or the horses coming out of that race.
All right. So as far as this race goes, again, like you said, Mike, a great horse race, but not great race horses going towards the Derby here. Do you have any idea where they might go? I would assume Glengarry's probably going to go the Oaklawn route. They got the Iowa bred. He's an Iowa bred. Iowa connections. Go ahead, Shadi.
Asmussen said that he is Derby Trail, so I would assume Oaklawn, but he could also go to Louisiana. But I think he was training at Oaklawn.
Yeah, maybe Oaklawn, where they both go, right, Mike?
Out of the Conqueror will definitely be Oaklawn. He was training at Oaklawn coming up to this race in Churchill before that. Glengarry, I think, is a little bit more interesting. Doug Anderson, not a household name from a training perspective. So he's got, and this horse was a Prairie Meadows horse, right? So a well-known horse to Aaron around his circuit. So we'll see where he ends up going. Did win at Keeneland last time out. I'll be also interested. I mean, I guess you're probably keeping him on the Derby Trail for at least one more race. Glengarry's a better sprinter, though. He should be probably not going 1.25 miles. And so at some point, you're going to see him pull back. One of those that you may want to target and say, I'm really interested in this horse sprinting on Belmont Day, for instance, right? Like versus interested in him in the Derby. We'll see what happens. My guess is you're going to see the Louisiana circuit for Glengarry, and you'll see the Oaklawn circuit here for Out of the Conqueror.
Well, that was the first race, and Shadi, I know you're very busy. You've got an extremely busy city life happening right out there. So thank you for coming on and joining us. Really do appreciate you, honestly, coming on because you were there live. And actually, as Carl Ramrod said, the biggest takeaway this weekend, you, Davey, and Pedlo, you put together a video. You said, here's our win picks. You gave out a stone cold trifecta. So hats off to you guys. Thank you for that. And yeah, I guess we'll see you on this is the last time we're going to be nice to you because Thursday is the fantasy draft. So
and we're not sure if we're going to do a video like you guys did last year because like you said, we need to be humble. So we might flash the ring.
I didn't say you have to do anything. I just said you just know that my guns are always cocked and loaded and ready to go. When it's
that's very true.
Yeah, Magic doesn't know what humble means. Shadi, before you go, I got a real quick question for you. How is the atmosphere at Remington? I love Remington Park. Like one of my favorite small tracks. Was it crazy there?
Well, there's actually a video that I have on my Twitter of us, Davey and I, being the only people out in the apron. But it was 45 degrees with a 10, so it's 36 wind chill. It was cold. It was rainy. Everyone was inside placing their bets, or they were at the paddock during that video. But when the races were actually happening, there's people out there.
Yeah, if you haven't been to Remington, highly recommend if you're in Oklahoma City to check it out. It's a lot of fun.
It's so fun.
It's one of those beautiful small tracks. The apron area is awesome. They've got picnic tables out there that you can sit at during the races. Really nice paddock to go to. Yeah, I mean it's very, very cool small tracks. If you've never been there, make sure you put it on the bucket list.
All right, Shadi, thanks so much. We'll see you on Thursday at the fantasy draft.
Ta-ta.
Also, sorry, I pulled her out just a quick second there, but Truth Exposed said hi to you. Sorry, still in the back. She saw that. And Gary Keller was also saying, yay, it's Shadi, much earlier. So, yeah, I'm very happy that Shadi was here. And, yeah, the Racing Dudes Triple Crown Fantasy League Draft is this Thursday live at, let's see, it's going to be 8 o'clock Eastern, 7 Central, 5 Pacific. So, 11 teams each picking 5 horses that we all think will do great things on the Kentucky Derby Trail. So, it's not just fun because there's a lot of goofiness that happens. But, Mike, it's also an important thing because several top handicappers are in the league, and then we also have a few other people. But we're all watching this Derby Trail, and if there are going to be a lot of horse names that people probably don't recognize, we're kind of like telling you, maybe pay attention to this one. Might not turn into anything, but here's a horse that we kind of think has some potential. So it's all about the potential.
Yeah, it's a great way to get on top of the Derby early if you want to start putting horses on a watch list, things like that. And that's something that I do every year is I'll when someone says a horse that I don't know, I'm like, okay, I'll go back, watch some replays, see what we can do. And if you start kind of crushing the replays, you can see some of these horses that pop out to you and you can get at decent numbers. I had 3 of them last year at pretty good numbers that I got in January once you started to get a little bit more information. And 2 of them were because of you, Magic, when I started doing research on different fantasy team members. So it's a great way to do that. Also wanted to throw this up real quick. I did not hear this. Gillian mentions Raging Torrent bled coming down the stretch. I did not hear that he did bleed. That obviously gives him a lot more of an excuse in that situation versus just a straight up race.
That's horrible. And also, he's still a maiden, isn't he? There are a few horses that were maidens in the American Pharoah. I can't remember if Raging Torrent, he might not have been one, but either way, bring it back to California.
No, he's not a maiden. He broke his maiden first time out at 5 furlongs, went to the grade 3 best pal, ran 3rd to Prince of Monaco, then ran in the Alamitos Futurity, ran 4th, and then the American Pharoah ran 4th.
I think there's a Desormo horse that I'm thinking of that was in the American Pharoah as well. But anyways, speaking of California horses and Well, a horse that's at least wearing the colors of Muth, who won the American Pharoah, that is Coach Prime. We're going to talk about the Grade 2 Los Al Futurity, a race that Bob Baffert has won, I think, 8 times straight, 10 in a row. I don't. This is the Bob Baffert Futurity. He's won it almost every year. It's been at Los Al. Practical Move, who shoddy road to Fantasy League success last year, actually won this race last year. But Mike, there's 3 Bob Bafferts, and the longest price wins it. What do you make of this race? This is a mess.
It's a tough one to take too much away from. The other Baffert wins. It kind of felt like a Saratoga turf race with Chad Brown horses where one of them goes to the lead and it's not really the one you'd expect. I thought Wind Me Up would be the horse on the lead. It ends up being the 2 on the rail, and Wind Me Up and Coach Prime really kind of get funky trips because of how this plays out. I mean, you see Coach Prime there basically 4 wide into the first turn, Wind Me Up 4 wide into the first turn. What?
It just hurts to watch the wide trips on these 2 horses.
So it's like, it's hard to take too much away from them. Well, the 2, kind of went pretty quick here, right? But it wasn't like the 2 was flying. So when you watch the race, you're like, do I really think Winstock is better than these horses? Not really after watching this. You also have, and we've talked about this before, you've got that turfy type feel at Los Alamitos where turf breeding can be a positive, and you don't always see the same thing with the dirt side. So I'm not going to take much out of this. To me, Wind Me Up was the most disappointing horse in this race because I thought Wind Me Up should be able to get the lead or at least press the lead. And going 47, almost 48, the effort down the lane I thought was pretty lackluster here. Was clearly the 4th best horse in this race behind the 2, 3, and 5. I thought Coach Prime probably the best horse in this race. Really funky trip there. The 4 wide, the 5 wide. For Los Alamitos, the fractions weren't very good, and kind of you could see him starting to grind late and figure things out. Still very green, so we'll see if he can take a step forward here. The 3, I feel like really should have won the race, Stronghold, and Stronghold just couldn't get by Winstock in this spot, and it. The trip was perfect, and so you kind of say, okay, going forward, is Stronghold going to be much better than this? Probably not. Is Winstock going to be much better than this? Probably not. Coach Prime has a chance to improve out of it. The only horse I think is really a Derby prospect is probably Coach Prime. But to me, the biggest issue here was we talked about Muth a little bit last race, talk about the American Pharoah. Raging Torrent, if Raging Torrent did bleed, you obviously got to put a grain of salt on that effort. But Wind Me Up just was bad here, right? And that was the horse that gave Muth a little bit of trouble in the American Pharoah and obviously did not run well in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile. And so you combine these 2 efforts now and you kind of scratch your head about Muth a little bit more than I think I was expecting this early in the campaign.
You summed everything up perfectly, and right there, they're hitting the wire on the replay. Nicely done. It's like you do this professionally, like every Friday, Saturday, Sunday for VSiN in Las Vegas. This Wind Me Up, I'm gonna agree with Shoddy. Wind Me Up was about the most disappointing, and it's tough to blame. I want to say it was Juan Hernandez's fault, the jockey on the 6, because when they came out of the gate, he's looking over. Watch him. He knows that the 2, but he also knows the 2 is a Baffert. I'm Baffert's, the reason I have so much money and all these nice things and can support my family is because of Bob Baffert. If I screw up Bob Baffert, I'm not riding for Bob Baffert anymore. So I don't know why he didn't send the horse. The horse won gate to wire early, almost wired American Pharoah in his second start, first time routing. Why'd you let him go 4 wide on a speed track when he's a speed horse? I don't understand it.
Yeah, so go back there. Here's the thing. I understand not pressing the 2. I don't understand not clearing the 3, 4, 5.
Yes.
That to me was okay, fine. If you don't want the lead, I get it, but you got to go more than what you did. And then that was surprising to me, especially with the style of the horse. Now, maybe there were some instructions here because we know that Chad Brown gives instructions in those turf races of which horse is supposed to go to the lead. Maybe he was specifically told, hey, you're giving the 2 the lead today. We're going to see if Wind Me Up is able to stalk because we want to try and change the dynamics up on this horse because that's how we're eventually going to try and win, major races with Wind Me Up. And if that was the case, this was a pretty big failure. But the trip also wasn't great. However, you got to beat at least the 3, right? I mean, at least the fact that there was nothing left there, and it felt like Coach Prime was all in before Wind Me Up was all in, and then Wind Me Up just kind of backed up. I mean, if you're watching it, if you watch this replay here, Coach Prime's getting shook up pretty good here, and Wind Me Up,
Mhm.
I feels like is not getting shook up as well and making progress, and then just never has any kick once they clear this turn.
Yeah, that really kind of further tells me how much this is a speed horse, and this is all just organically coming to or leading to the next video that's coming out or just came out on the Racing Dudes YouTube channel, which was Aaron explaining how he handicaps pace and how to handicap pace if you're not sure, and if you see a horse with one horse with that's lone speed. If you see two horses with speed, that might be bad. If you see horses that are 3-4 wide trying to go to the front, and the 6 doesn't get it, the 6 gets 4th because he didn't get the lead and he's pissed off about it. So go check that video out if you haven't yet, but it's a classic example right there. That is a horse that wants the lead, didn't get the lead, and said, I hate this.
Yeah, I'm after watching these two races, Nysos seems like he might have had the best day of any horse, and he didn't even run, right? I mean, Stronghold, it came from 4th in the Bob Hope, a grade 3 at Del Mar last time. A 4-horse field, but came from 4th, ended up dominating that field, beat Stronghold by 8 lengths. That horse ends up running 2nd here and wasn't involved in the mess that was the American Pharaoh at this point. Urban Legend, Colorado Cruiser ran behind him. He won by 10 lengths, 10 open lengths. Both of those came back to run okay in their next starts as well. So that would make me believe right now Nysos is the best Baffert. And when you peruse over to the odds board, I believe he is the top Baffert choice as well. Fierceness right now 11-1, Dornoch 16-1, Nysos 16-1, Sierra Leone 16-1, and then Locked at 25-1. Right now, your top 5.
Well, you talked about one last point I'll make. You talked about the times and how they were a little slow for this race. I'll fast forward so you can who are watching and see the final fractions there. I'm going to read off what Practical Move did last year. And different year, different horse, and different track conditions, but fast track, Los Al's a quarter horse track, so it's built for speed. Last year, Practical Move set off the pace. They went 23-3, 46-3, 110-1, 135 flat. Final time 141-3. He was 2 seconds faster than this field last year. Do not take any of these horses for the Derby Trail. Maybe Coach Prime as like a flyer, as like a longer shot, but he's 4-5 here. What kind of odds would he really be?
Well, the only thing I have with that is racetracks change a lot in a year, and so the time changes quite a bit over that time. Now, what was the buyers last year?
Oh, that one I want to say he was like high 90s. Practical Move was like 95, 97, something like that.
And these are mid 80s, right? Mid 85, 86 here for the top 2 finishers. Yeah. And we didn't talk about that in the Springboard Mile. The buyers came back depressingly low for the Springboard Mile. I want to say it was like low 70s, high 60s, something like that.
71 for Out of the Conqueror. Yep.
So it kind of backs up hey, they went really slow. If you just look at the times, those 14-second furlongs, they're late. And Rodney's like, I love him in the Breeders' Cup. Coach Prime that far down the road. I don't disagree. Look, the horse
put a 6-month pin in that, Rodney. You're 6 months early on that conversation.
I mean, the horse clearly has talent, right? I'm not going to knock the horse for that. And the race was a funky race here. It's the first time going 2 turns for Coach Prime, if I remember correctly, as well. So there are excuses that are built up into this. But it still wasn't, and from a Derby perspective, which I think is what we're more focused on, is what do we think of that horse? And obviously there's the whole Baffert of the situation here in the Derby and whether or not to transfer trainers and all that jazz. So we'll deal with that down the road. If Baffert was allowed to run, let's just go with the hypothetical. I think Coach Prime's the only horse from this field that could make the gate.
Yeah. Out of this field, I agree with you. I will, slight correction. He has only run 2 turns. Coach Prime debuted on turf going 2 turns, right. Which is also a weird thing. Why would Baffert debut the horse on turf at 2 turns that late in the season? Sometimes you see that earlier in the year, especially at Del Mar, because that's the only spot they have 2 turns is on the turf for the 2-year-olds. But it's late enough in the year, he should have gone to the dirt for 2 turns or 7 furlongs, 6.5. You usually see those distances for the route horses. Just a lot of question marks about an extremely high-priced horse.
I don't think. Okay, so the debuting on the turf doesn't bother me that much. The plan was never for this to be a turf horse, right? It's a $1.7 million Zandon purchase. The goal was always to end up on the dirt and possibly compete for Kentucky Derby. And I think that they just said, hey, we want to make sure we get this horse into a race, and that Santa Anita Mile race popped up, and they wanted to go a mile, right? And that was kind of the decision there. So that doesn't bother me as much. I do like the fact that he can clearly stalk, right? Like that to me is he won his race last time out starting in the 6th position early in the race, was 5th at the half mile point, was last in this race. So clearly knows how to pass horses at a young age, but still like there's some head stuff that needs to be worked out here. And I think you can see that right here when they turn for home, where he's making up ground on everybody and then kind of just idles right in this spot. You know, we have about a 16th of a mile where he actually fades back to last again. And then you see that kick in again, that extra gear. And so still need to get the mental aspect of this horse down before we really understand what the top end is. And that's also why of anyone in this field, I'd take Coach Prime, is because everyone else seems pretty mentally full. Wind Me Up was a little bit of a mess, but the fact that this is where they end, I mean, to me, Coach Prime, will mentally not completely developed yet, running that race is the most interesting of this group.
Well, it's going to be curious to see what happens with all the different Bob Baffert horses, because there's plenty of them. There's plenty that you will find out about in the Racing Dudes Triple Crown Fantasy League. I saw some people talking in the chat about it earlier. Christian even bringing up Pilot Commander. I got that right, Pilot Commander there. So there's a lot going on with the Baffert horses. Speaking of the Derby Trail, Mike, I love Fairgrounds. It's not often we say this, but one of the things we always love about Fairgrounds, they're at least a week ahead with every race entry. Look at this Gunrunner Stakes. Like, look at, you've got Next Level for Keith DeSormo, Catching Freedom for Brad Cox, Risk It for Asmussen, who's one of the most impressive Saratoga debut winners this summer, Neat for Atris, Footprint for Kenny McPeak at a price with Hernandez, so that horse is guaranteed to hit the board. Sneed for Brendan Walsh, Track Phantom for Steve Asmussen, and Nash, your 7-5 favorite, because he had a 97 buyer for winning his debut. This is a load. The Gunrunner is going to be graded next year. There's no way from this field it's not a grade 3 next year.
You would hope so. But man, this is a very fun race. You know my favorite thing about this? My boy Raylu Gutierrez and Torres both have mounts. I'm pumped that we're seeing both of them here, because the Christian Torres and Raylu Gutierrez, 2 jockeys that I liked a couple years back, who we've seen kind of go through the circuit and get more and more publicity, and excited to see them get opportunities at this level. So excited to see that they're there. Yeah, it's gonna be a fun race, man. It's gonna be a lot of fun. The grading thing, like, I mean, it's on the laundry list of things horse racing needs to fix. Like a lot of people talking, a lot of people are talking about the Naira thing this weekend. Yeah, I mean, like, yeah, that's on the list as well. Like what
happened? I'm not aware of what happened yesterday, and there's a lot of people talking about in the chat. What happened?
There was a DQ that I think the mass majority of the world does not believe there was a DQ on, and then Naira doubled down and suspended the jockey who they DQ'd, Alvarado, instead of like coming out and saying something. So there's the ownership group of the horse that got DQ'd is now filing a grievance against Naira to say that there should be a review, but no one really knows what that process is. And like, it's just, we'll put it this way. It's the culmination of a bunch of shitty decisions by Naira stewards that made everyone upset because they made their shittiest one yet. Yeah. Is that fair?
And Junior Alvarado was the jockey that got beat up for it, and say he got suspended 3 days too. Ugh.
Yeah, it was a pretty interesting one. Like you watch it and you're like, what? Why? Where are we? What are we doing here? And it wasn't like it wasn't the winner of the race, right? So it was the second place horse, I believe, that got the DQ, and you're like, it was a head scratcher, man. It's hard to even explain like how messed up the process was, because it was up there when like they had a DQ. Where was it? They had a DQ somewhere, but they were flashing dead heat instead of DQ and like confused. It's like that kind of stuff where it's just incompetence. And then it was one of those races where I did not see any reason why you're taking the horse down. And yet then they flash it for a long time, and then they take the horse down, and then you're like, wait, what? And then they suspend the jockey, and it's just because of everything. It was crazy. And yeah, it was a $500,000 New York bred stakes race too. So that's where the other problem is. The ownership is like, you can't take the second place purse money is quite a bit as well. So it's you sit there and there's so many different pieces of this where it's like, it's just unfathomable. And you've seen wild inconsistencies from Naira where it's like, hey, one time it's a DQ, the next time it's not. And that, I think, is the most frustrating part of all of this thing, is that it's just like, you need to be consistent. If the same thing is a foul every time for the same jockey and the same trainer, the same ownership group, great. I don't care if it's not the letter of the law. I care it's consistent, because then I know what the actual letter of the law is, because I have consistency. In this case, just another one of those situations where you're like, I don't get it. It's a head scratcher.
I like Shoddy's comment. Horses on the inside were causing trouble. You should have just moved out of their way. DQ for you.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just, it's frustrating. But again, it's like the laundry list. Like, that's why, like, I would much rather this race isn't graded and we fix the stewards problem than this race gets graded. You know, like, it's just, there's so many things that I would put above making sure that the right races are graded, because look, I'm surprised they don't have every race graded at some point, because you know why people have graded races? So they can get black type and horses sell for more. I mean, like, it's just, it's ridiculous. So I'm surprised that they don't put more of the graded races up there.
It's like the argument for just let every baseball player use steroids. Like, I don't know, just let them all do it. It's fine. They're all cheating.
If everyone's cheating, no one's cheating, right? I'm sure no one will push the envelope on that.
No, absolutely not. But hey, listen, we've been pushing the envelope on this show. It's already been half an hour, and somehow we talked for half an hour about two races that really didn't excite us that much from this weekend. But it was really great to have Shoddy on and get her first-hand account from being there at Remington Park. Then we got to see here the Gunrunner Stakes and talk about the Los Alamitos Futurity. We'll plug it one more time. The Racing Dudes Triple Crown Fantasy League Draft is this Thursday at 5 Pacific, 8 Eastern, 7 Central. If you don't care about our fantasy league, totally understand. It gets kind of goofy. However, if you like the Triple Crown, tune in for that, because I'm telling you, you're going to see John White, one of the greatest horse racing minds alive. He's going to give his thoughts on horses that are coming. Aaron and Jared, who've been doing this for over a decade, going to give all of their thoughts on the horses. Kelby Von Hemel, who's shoed plenty of graded stakes champions, he's going to be drafting horses. He fell bass backwards for the second straight year into the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Champion, owned by Rapoli, trained by Todd Pletcher. So, you know, what's going to go wrong for them this year, I guess, is why I want to. But all that to say, please tune in. It's a lot of fun. We put a lot of work into it because we're so excited. So, love to see you there for that one.
Yeah, and Magic will make an ass of himself as well.
More so than I ever do. Like, if you took 5 months worth of me making an ass of myself on this show and just squelched it into like a 2-hour bit, that's what the fantasy league is.
Yeah, I know Doc is saying the double Ds are coming. So someone let Dr. Tang and Dr. Miranda into this league. And there will only be one D there. So it's not the double Ds that will be coming on Thursday, if I remember correctly. There are so many jokes. I'm just going to leave that alone now. I just started talking about that. I just started like, oh boy.
It's like if Aaron knew there was somebody in the fantasy league who likes to do wrestling style promos every year and thought, well, he's already going to make fun of them. What if I just make it a lot easier for him to make fun of them?
Yeah.
Yes, I am very aware of what the team name is, and you can bet your ass it's in the script a little bit there. Speaking of DQs, Aaron says, I wish the three would have gotten DQ'd a few times in the Sigma Derby. You got to introduce him and whoever the hell else was with him to the Sigma Derby that we talked about last week, and I'm so happy.
We did. We played some Sigma Derby. There is a live shot of Aaron playing Sigma Derby. You can see he was very frustrated by the lack of the threes break. So it's a fun little game. You got 5 horses that are on little tracks that go around. It was a blast. So if you're ever in Vegas, you want to go downtown, the D is the last place left. John White was actually with us, and he loves Sigma Derby, but hadn't played it in years because he couldn't find one. So he was over the moon when we ended up finding the Sigma Derby and playing it there. It was an absolute blast. So make sure to check that out. It's an old quarter game. You literally put quarters in. You get odds on a quinella, and when it wins, you hit a button and it pays you out in quarters, which is like my favorite part of this is it actually pays you out in the quarters. So it feels like one of the old school slot machines. They also give you free drinks. And let me tell you, it's hard to lose a lot of money quickly at that game. It's the cheapest drinks you can get in Vegas. And you can just jokingly scream at electronical horses, which you can pretty much tell who's going to run first or second as soon as they turn for home. Because the ones who end up running first or second start going really fast and like wobble back and forth and almost fall over.
Like they're gonna fall off the peg.
Yeah, it's incredible. It's a lot of fun. Yeah, so it's 25-cent free drinks. It's a blast at Sigma Derby down there at the D.
So, oh my God, wait a minute. You finally got to meet John.
Yes.
How did that go?
I went well. I went to dinner with John, and we went with free beers, John and Ryan Stillman and Rhonda. So I had a good time there. I have Rhonda and Stillman actually on my flight back home. So we sat next to them.
Miranda,
on the flight back home.
Not Rhonda, Miranda.
I'm sorry, Miranda and Brian on the flight back home. And so got to fly next to them. It was an absolute blast. Got to talk to them. I hadn't met Randa before, so got to know her very well. So there's a lot of fun with everybody. Good dinner. And then some good times there playing a little Sigma Derby.
Yeah, but we traditionally go meet John for dinner after the Breeders' Cup Saturday when it's held at Santa Anita. And so when we did that this year, you had the bombs and you had to leave early the next morning. It was a long weekend. You were very tired. I'm like, I can't do it. I got a lot of work to do and just need to sleep. John was so sad when he found out that you weren't coming. When I rolled in and they all go, "Where's Mike?" I was like, "He's not coming." He's like, "Oh, well, hi, Magic."
Well, we sat next to each other at dinner, had a good little horse racing talk there. The Sigma Derby had a good little betting talk as well. John had a very good weekend. He made some money on the NFL and the NHL this weekend, so he enjoyed himself there. And then Aaron went to his first Golden Knights game as well, and that I've been to a couple Golden Knights games. Phenomenal atmosphere. If you're looking for a hockey game to go to, you haven't been to one, the Knights are a great one to check out. So definitely highly recommend that. I know he enjoyed it as well. I think he lost a couple bucks on it, unfortunately. Golden Knights dominate the game, but don't win the first period, which is often a frustration in betting in that front. So all in all, good little Vegas weekend, a lot of fun. Happy to be home for the holidays now, and I am looking forward to, where is it? Oh, I thought I saw it. Here it is. We're only 8 days away from Santa Anita opening back up. They have a very good card coming on that day, and I'm fortunate enough to win a seat into the tournament that day on ExpressBet as well. So looking forward to the 26th and the Santa Anita opening day card.
And I am extremely happy that Santa Anita is drawing those races Friday this week. This week, Friday. So the day after the Triple Crown Fantasy League. Aaron's no, I won a lot.
Yeah, man.
The day after the Fantasy League draft, we get to have the fields for the Malibu, the La Brea, and the American Oaks, along with those are just the Grade 1 races. You got the Mathis Brothers Mile, Native Diver, San Pasqual, whatever the hell the older dirt route races. That's happening that weekend too. But the reason I'm happy about that is because Saturday I'm leaving for Michigan for a week, and I'm not bringing the computer, so it's either we don't cover those races. Thankfully, they're drawn on Friday, so we can get those races previewed before I get the hell out of town. So thank you, Santa Anita. Appreciate that one.
I like it. So we're no Magic Mike show on Thursday because we got the draft, right?
Correct.
Do we want to do a Santa Anita Magic Mike show on over the weekend, Friday, Saturday, or Sunday?
Well, I leave Saturday, and
So
they draw
Friday?
Friday.
So maybe
They
Saturday
draw Friday afternoon.
morning. Okay, all right, never mind then.
I was gonna say what I was gonna actually offer if you wanted. I don't know what your schedule is, but we could do Gulfstream or a different one. I know Gulfstream will be out. It's actually already out, so we could do Gulfstream on this Wednesday for Saturday for the weekend if we wanted, or we can just take it off. It's up to you.
Let me figure out. I'll hit you up offline. We got no school
Okay.
now, so I got a 5-year-old with me all the time, which makes it a little more.
Okay.
And we have zoo camp for the first couple days, but I don't know how long that lasts or how close to the holiday. So we'll figure that out. If not, I can also recruit one Aaron Halterman, who now has some heavy pants after that Vegas game, apparently, to join me on Saturday or Sunday for a quick little Santa Anita opening day recap as well.
Yeah, and as Aaron said, so much, and I could do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that was supposed to
Aaron-
be Somich. Yeah.
I think Aaron had a little bit to drink in Vegas. Can you confirm or deny that report?
He was tame. I'm gonna just say, now maybe he wasn't the other nights, but the nights
Tame by Aaron standards or just tame?
just tame in general. I mean, neither of us was overly intoxicated on Saturday night. Now I don't know if that changed.
Oh, you were with him Friday. Okay, never mind.
No, I was not with him Friday night. I was with him Saturday night, and the intoxication levels were. They actually, you know what? They were like day after Aaron's really drunk levels. So maybe that's what would happen. Maybe Friday was a little off the rails.
If Aaron was tame Saturday, there's no way he was anything other than belligerent Friday. Yeah.
Yeah.
Friday wasn't tame, he says. But hey, I'm glad you guys all made it home. I'm glad you guys had a great time, and I'm sure we'll hear more about those experiences on Blinkers Off because it was Aaron's big 40th birthday party in Las Vegas. So thank you, everybody, for joining us. Like I said, one more time, join us Thursday, 5 Pacific, 8 Eastern for the Racing Dudes Triple Crown Fantasy League Draft. That'll be that week's episode of Blinkers Off. Love to see you there. Stay tuned to where we are on the socials because Mike and I are going to talk here in a few minutes about when we're going to be doing a show later this week, if we can. If not, Mike and Aaron will do something for the weekend for Santa Anita. So make sure you follow us. I'm at Curtis Kalleward. He is at Somobomb 18, number 8, Corporate Overlords at Racing_Dudes. Any final words? Hey, actually, do you want to talk about the Eagles game? You got to pick for the Eagles game tonight.
I lean toward the Eagles. I played a -3 yesterday. It looks like Drew Lock is going to start for the Seattle Seahawks, so no Geno Smith. Looks like Jalen Hurts is going to start for the Eagles. If that's the case, the Eagles 3.5 I still like. I think Swift has a big night. So this is a run defense that has really struggled the last 5 games. So I'll take Swift over 59.5 rushing yards as a prop.
The Little League draft for Jared's Turtles, that is going to be in February, I believe. So tune in for that one as well. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll be back at some point, sometime. Just join us here at youtube.com/racingdudes and racingdudes.com. Until whenever that time is, I'm Magic.
And I'm Mike.
Special thanks again to Shotty for joining us. We'll see you next time.
The Magic Mike Show, where you hear the experts speak. The Magic Mike Show. Tune into the show every week. The Magic Mike Show. You can trust the show is the bomb because it's being brought to you by racingdudes.com.